So we don't want to go to school. You can make it without education. You have celebrities that hype the unnecessity of education, right? But at the same time, I believe it's a thing of, it goes off to extent of saying, if it works for you, then let it work for you. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and we know how that really, really turns out at some point. Welcome everybody to the very first episode of Varsity on Record. Light this particularly a wave, let it resonate for generations. Today, this is just an introductory episode. I'm introducing you guys to the host, which is myself and HX Litswiti here as well. And yeah, basically it's me, GB Langa, myself, and we're basically here to just tell you more about what the show is going to be about. I think everybody should introduce themselves before we begin on that.
Yeah, my name is Kawelo Litswiti, but you can also call me Ajax, and we're in here.
You're in here?
Yeah.
Okay, so he said he's in here. Anyway, it's lost your record way. I'm not good, we chilled. But yeah, my name is GB Langa. One of the hosts as well for the Varsity on Record. So this particular podcast in itself, or show, however you really want to really portray it, is really here to really talk about sustainability plans, which more especially we're Africans. So we're going to be talking more about sustainability plans that are going to be surrounded in Africa by being done in terms of research for higher education, right? And most things that will be translated from the higher institutions, more especially so. I'm also going to be talking in terms of what we believe, like some current crisis possibly in economics as well, which we'll cover that. If you really want to also talk in terms of like your dissertations, I think this is the correct time in which we're really going to just see ways in which we can enter those dissertations that you've left in the bookshelves and they're just read in varsity to just chill as part of your research for another person. We're finally going to really talk about them, and they're now going to be kind of active as well. And yeah, we're also going to do some tours in future as well with some of the other universities so that we can get to really talk about hard-hitting issues that really need to be also going to be touching innovations. I can continue on in terms of what that can be, but if it's in education, we're going to talk about it. If it's in research, we're going to talk about it. If it's innovation, we're going to talk about it. We're going to be talking about everything that affects society and higher learning and education all encompassed into one, and that's basically what we're going to be leaning into in terms of topics. So mostly today we're just going to begin. It's an intro podcast, it's an intro episode. We're not really going to be long. We're not going to be here for a very long time, but we're going to try and give you guys what in terms of a hint and a trailer of what you can 100% expect. So most first and foremost, I think we are just going to talk about the major aspects of the current stuff before we actually continue to that. Regardless of when you see this, at most we are actually going to be hosting Professor Ntabiseng Ogude very soon. By the time you're seeing this, it's already been shot and it's already been posted to you guys, so you've possibly seen as to what it's just going to obviously be talking about. We're going to be talking about the Pre-University Academy, which is one of the greatest things I believe anyway that has come out of the University of Pretoria that they have brought in to really prepare kids for the next future of basically, not to say the next future, but basically prepare them for university. Not so many people know anything. We basically restart life. We try to start
From the start.
Yeah, and it's hard, right? So this is one great initiative, I believe, and hence we had to bring them on board in terms of that. UP is doing some great strides, especially in the sustainability space itself. It has the future of Africa as well, which helps it a lot with most aspects in terms of, it's going to help, I believe, in terms of the future of sustainability in Africa, how Africa is going to look in the future. such things, I believe, are going to come out of this. There's a lot that they do in sustainability. Shout out to Utawana Kupe, Utawana Kupe for that, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Pretoria. Big ups in terms of what you're doing, especially on the Gape side, you know. I'm just going to mention that. But yeah, so we're going to really now start touching on that. You might have, as I said, seen that interview and you have been encompassed with it. We're going to follow it up after what you see now. We're really going to follow it up in the following week, just for you guys to really get a taste of what is going to then continue in. We're also going to come up with some series that will tell you how it is to work in these major companies. That's something that we are building on as well. And the universities, how it is to really go to these universities, I believe there can be a taste of that, but I think you'll find out a little bit things you can see as you go by each and every single episode. So we're just going to be starting off the whole thing. As I said, we're not going to cover much, but we're going to cover just a few things that are 100% effective in terms of us. We have a few things that we obviously then want to put out there. So let's mainly talk about the state of education in our country. I believe in those cases, we would say it's the most, should I say, poorer? Like, I'm even struggling to say it. I don't even know the right words.
There's more work to be done, basically. There's more work to be done. But in the current state that we in, education and studying in the early phase of education, it seems like there's more to be done. There's a void that still has to be covered, and bringing aspect of education into understanding how varsity can be like before actually getting to it. It's actually important.
So what might be the reasons for it? Because you know, the funny thing about how these education structures really work, more especially within our country, is that we find that we as beings, more especially, we want to really focus on the North, America. I would say I'm mentioning countries now, but look at the societies there, right? Look at the minorities in those societies there. How are they really relating to us? Why? I know it's a thing of, we want to really look like the Americans, we want to feel like the Americans, so we don't want to go to school. You can make it without education. You know, you have celebrities that hype the unnecessity of education, right? But at the same time, I believe it's a thing of, it goes off to extent of saying, if it works for you, then let it work for you. If it doesn't, it doesn't, you know. And we know how that really turns out at some points. But if we were to really touch on it, we were to say that education is the most important on of our society to obviously thrive. Right? Without education, we can't just thrive on music and entertainment. We don't need to be entertained.
We can't all be entertained. Exactly. We need academics. We need people actually who has knowledge in solving the problems that we face even in today's society. Because problems evolve with time. So if we don't have people who go to school or progress in school, how are we going to solve those issues if we don't have people who are knowledgeable?
Exactly. And apart from that, say then that very same entertainer needs to host an event of a very good high caliber. The sponsors in which he's getting are from people who are very much academic. So if you're not going to school, you're not going to be the one who's basically now putting that guy behind the scene to give one of the greatest performances. Now you want to be him, and if all of us want to be him or her, in this case, let me not specify a particular gender, but if you want to be him or her, then it's not going to work without actually having a form of education. We believe, more especially with the fourth industrial revolution that's coming up, right, that a lot can really take place in that. We need people who are really going to know how to really work around that. And some of those researchers, and they're not really going to develop themselves. Have we gotten dumber by the time? I don't know. Maybe I might say that. Yeah. Because we've had, I think there was a research that was conducted not so long ago. There are lesser innovations and lesser disruptive ideas that are in this current era. Apparently between the 1950s at best, if you want to look it up, apparently upon the 1950s and a little bit back, there were more disruptive ideas then, like, your cars and whatnot. Yes, I say, but this time is not, but now we're more lazier. We have computers, we have smartphones, everything. But if we're having less disruptive ideas, what's the reason for that? Is because all of us want to live a certain measure of life of which we believe we deserve, because that's what our very own society is defining it as. But I believe we're not really giving some form of value towards that piece of education and how that education has really been brought to the fore for us, right? Because if ever you go to a school, you try something, you train in something, at most you're more enthusiastic to master it and further it and grow in it, so that you can finally then say, okay, this is what I want to see. Most people want to see the impact, right? In poorer states, obviously the main thing is to obviously break through, make money, be okay. But the question is, what is the sustainability plan around that? Because that's what not so many people have. The idea is, I need to get the money, but I don't know how to sustain it. I never really go into the sustainability plan of it. That's where I believe things like having to read and get to know a little bit more on research help a lot, because I would say without them, we really don't have direction in terms of what we can really do to create that. Or should we say that that our current generation, our current era, is generous to the society and each other, to a point whereby we're so selfish that we don't want to add up to our own children's legacies. Should I maybe put it like that? I think
it's a question to be debated. That given the idea that we're more of receivers of these innovations, instead of being the forefront of actually being people who actually need such and even come up with new ideas. And this is where education comes in, the sustainability of it. Being able to have that knowledge to say, this is such, how can I make it fit? Or how can I come with innovative ways of doing it? And how can I sustain it in such a time that it actually is a vision for a better thing?
True. I think also in terms of the entrepreneurship of things as well. Yeah, this is where we now started falling into those Gibbs suggest good entrepreneurial school. But in most aspects, we would say this is where most people will come. But then the society is programming us to be workhorses. We need to work for somebody. We need to work for the man. But I want to be late. Yes, and be the man. But here's the question.
Yeah.
How are you going to go through an experience? Are you not willing to learn? I had a conversation not so long ago, and I said to a person, I was like, there are some aspects whereby we want to be so much independent, that we want to work so much with us being self-made. We want to be self-made so bad, to a point whereby we have a ladder.
Okay.
For a particular instance, we have a ladder, right? You have a ladder that's been given to you. You have the right circle of people, right? You have somebody that's influential or things like that. That's your ladder to climb up into wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
But the problem is, most of us then decide to be like, you know what? If I do this, this person's gonna be like, I made you, or something like that. We fail to look at that ladder, and we go out and build our own ladder, which is tougher and harder because of that.
Which is a phase that not so many people want to start.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where education comes in. Education comes in as a form of organized information. That information is now officially organized and put together so that you can eat it. Normally, basically it's cooked. Unlike you saying, I'll learn how green things work. It's chlorophyll, it's plants. Unless you didn't know it, it's chlorophyll, photosynthesis. I've seen this question run around for a long while, and people have been making themselves dumb and trying to not know how to answer it. But it's a trend, it's fine. I'm not going to debate anything with anybody there. It is what it is. But we need the thing that we need to realize, that we need each other. But most can then comply, actually argue the point and say, but then the higher order wants us to really not work with each other, because working with each other is more destructive to them than it is for the, such ideas can come about. But in actual fact, you would realize that the very same higher power that you claim with this conspiracy theory really wants us to really collaborate and work on ideas so that we can grow a society. Because at the end of the day, not all of us are going to be good entrepreneurs. We're not going to be entertainers. But there's always a value that we're going to add in some form or the other. right? If ever I'm good with wheels and somebody else is good with engines, right? You're good with engines. 100%. That's a collaboration right there. It works. It builds. It
As
moves.
this one thing.
Exactly. It's something like that. But if ever you want to build the entire car alone,
That's not.
it's not gonna work. Which is where most lower class and less socio economic advantaged people really come about. I would say, I'm not putting a stereotype to that, not be attacked on that part, but most of them, that's where their mindset really is driven around. And I'm talking mostly from these ideologies outside, which is from the West, most of them, where they come exactly into that. I'm self-made. There are even songs about it, I don't know what song it is, but I know there's a song that has a point in mind that says I'm self-made in it, right? Which is a lie, which is a lie. You are never self-made.
You need a certain degree of people into your life to say, I've made it this far. It'll be your mom, your dad, your friend, your community, anyone. There's always going to be people around there to make a certain level of who you are. True. Final product. And so being self-made, it's a topic for another day.
It is. I think that's a topic that we'll possibly not have. I don't know. Maybe in one of the tours, maybe we'll kind of come together and really talk about that in some of them, right? But again, you would say to someone that how much of a good advantage can you say that you are of a self-made individual when in actual fact, all of us have never really said to anybody that we can do it on our own. I think that the one question that comes into mind is we fail to pay attention.
Yeah.
Right? We fail to pay attention so much. And what I mean by failing to pay attention is the fact that we always come to this bit of, you know what? If let's say we are in this type of environment that we're in, right?
Yeah.
If you are maybe say you're in a certain location, certain geographic area, certain things, that environment influences your ideas. What you watch, what you consume, what you read influences your character, influences your decisions in which you take in order to move in a certain way. Should you take an idea from, let's say, for instance, you live in Germany, right? You take an idea from there and you try to apply it in a certain area, maybe let's say somewhere in South Africa, it might not work. Those are the chances of it because we fail to really pay attention to our own environment, what really is being, what's the buying power here, right? What's the actual idea that works for us here, right? We never really plan around that, but we fail at that. Because paying attention is one thing that I would say, more especially in this current society, we have one of the most ignorant generations, I would say, ever, right? The past generation was basically ignorant, I would say, but not this ignorant. Let me put it like this. I believe the old generation was, we are seeing the path, and there were people that were really organizing information and giving it to us.
Yeah.
Right? They were willing to really take organized and concentrated information. Then now, whereby we really want to groom an idea, and if somebody without research comes to you and says to you right now, blue paper is white, you will believe it.
You will take it as that without even doing in your own research.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter if this person has made it their life's mission to say blue is white, and they've been there and they've made it there. Trust and believe, the one thing that they'll always do is that do believe that person. You'll flock over obviously to your Twitter, and that's the first thing that you're going to see. Whereas without realizing the fact that you know that information, knowledge. Exactly. If you have talent on something, like some songwriters just have talent. That's it. But some songwriters, tell me good songwriters that harnessed their gifts, wrote that song, harnessed it and learned how the concept of writing a song works and progressed through, right?
Interesting.
There are many. They are there, but not all of them really come across that because some of them are just be like, I'd put it like this, independent artists at best.
Yeah.
At best, without the correct management, more especially, will write a song and not really know how to harness how the growth works and everything like that. They're really not really looking to tap into that education format, right? Because now once you hire the correct manager, for instance, you get the knowledge and get exposure of what this person's already exposed to. You get how this person is also able to really, how you're able to grow in that very industry, how you're really able to make whatever money from that very industry, what direction to really take. Be independent, don't have a manager that's anyway a good manager, and you are bound to really just lose a lot of money, right? You are bound to just be a person who's just being commanded and being spoken after by, and how should I say, mostly revered as the GOAT just because of your fans, right? And if ever I listen to your music after that, I'm not okay. You'll be talking about one thing and one sentence only. It might be green, I'm just saying, right? But it's not eerie. Don't get me otherwise, right? If you get the word play, you'll be okay. You get what I'm saying, right? It's that type of thing. Like most of us don't try to be independent. Try to get information from the person who's already done it, because obviously at that point in time they have a whole archive which they've organized information so that you don't have to and fall from wherever you are. Right. That's the one thing that I believe most people really have to take in terms of this. And that's where education really comes upon. It comes to exactly that point. Without it, you wouldn't be right where you are. It'd be like, I don't need it, you need it. And so do, and unfortunately, I am sorry to burst the bubble, you need it. In traditional format or on your casual format, you need education. You need to learn from somebody. You need to learn from some institution. You might say, I can't afford to go to. You need to learn it from somebody. There's somebody out there who's done what you want to do, right? Knock on that door, knock it down if you want to, right? I'm joking, don't do that. It's a crime. But on a figurative form, you're okay, right? But just basically fight for that. Fight for information. Straightforward, fight for information that will educate you to follow what you need to go through with. Simple, irregardless of the form of education that you're obviously getting, but for entrepreneurs, kids. That's basically what I'll already state on. And that's one thing that will boost our sustainability within our content more especially. I would 100% say anytime, go for that. And one thing that we're obviously going to look into, I don't know if there might be anything that you want to add from those places.
Yeah. The overall of the information that Gift has already said is education is important, and without the background of actually having education, it's a topic that we really need to have. Education is actually very important. Without education, you can get anywhere with education. You can knock off doors, even so, as he said, by education. But without that, it's something else. And I would say, yeah. So the overall, get your education, please. Thank you.
So yeah, that's basically the basis of everything. I think actually, you know what? Let's have this conversation. Or if you're a varsity kid out there, let's do this. We want to set up a tour quite soon. Let us know. Bang us there by the comments, possibly. Tell us if you're possibly a vice chancellor or anyone in form of the education space there. Let us sit down. Let us have a room. We want the entire room. We'll come through. We'll sit down, have a conversation. I'd say 50 of you guys in a room. Let's do that. Let's go for that. Let's see where we can have such a conversation and just speak about the importance of education and how far it can really go and how it can literally also help in sustaining our society, right? And obviously sustaining our society means that you sustain the next generation and the next generation. And that's how it will 100% then go in terms of that. So now with one of those aspects obviously then alleviated from that, if ever you look at the fact that how are we going to sustain our actual society, I would give you one typical example, a very beautiful example. I love a very current example. I love this example. We are held by at most, at best, look, you know what, just sit down before you get into a taxi. That's as far as I can go. We have load shedding problems.
Probably even in load shedding right now.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Right. You're possibly even this video is buffering because of network problems. Just gonna put it there. It's something that load shedding itself is happening because someone with corruption, greed, and all of that. But are we sure it's because of the failure of taking concept, understanding how government worked, and proceeding with? Because somebody might say this might offend somebody, but actually, it is what it is. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
they would say that the apartheid government ran the country better. We're talking about running the country. We're not talking about anything else.
Yeah.
We're talking about running the country and running it successfully, right? The Tsar at some point was one of the most beautiful currencies in the world, right? And looking at that, are we right to say in this case, right now the government is failing because they basically got in there from wherever they came from and without really knowing how to
manage.
Yeah, to manage it. Because let's look at all the former presidents. For instance, all the former presidents were very, very educated. And we're talking about those ones, right?
Yeah.
Mandela was educated. He went into law school, I believe, right? Our first democratic president.
Wow.
And the country was okay. We had social grants, I believe. I wasn't there, and you might say, but you didn't do your research. Don't ask me. You do the research. I'm just going to tell you what it is, right? But here's the kicker into all of this.
Yeah.
The country was thriving a little bit better. Tambeki came in, was educated as well. The economy was flawless. Not ready, but flawless. There was corruption, but okay. I'm not saying corruption is correct. It is not. But come on. If the economy is good, I'm okay. I'm living. I don't have these problems. All right. And we're not condoning corruption, as I said. Yeah, we're basically saying we're looking at the caliber of which they held the country in. And then came across now the next president that came in. He wasn't also educated. A lot of corruption happened. A lot of things were lost. The run
March of administration.
Yeah, did a lot. Yeah, he did what he did. He did some good things. We take that away, but we're looking at how our economy was being affected. Then somebody else said, we inherited a bad economy. Somebody said that, to which we are in right now. And obviously in this common case, we'd then be talking about our honorable president. We shall put it like that, cupcake. I really don't want to get much into that conversation at most, but then we had load shedding. We literally live on load shedding.
We literally live by the schedule of load shedding.
Yeah. So basically,
we live a load shedding lifestyle. If you don't plan around it, it's just going to be a mess,
And that's where we then get to a point where we speak about the consequences of all of this. Right, what are the consequences, more especially in terms of sustainability? If we had more of a good, should I say, literate country, right? We're very
important.
If ever we had a literate country, guess what we would do? We'd know a lot of things, a lot of it. We'd obviously know how to work around some things. We'd really know when to protest correctly, don't burn tires and loot and do that. We'd really know how to really, how should I say, confront government. We would really know how to vote. I don't even know how the re-election really happened, more especially the controversy that happened. There was a lot of controversy surrounding the president right now, which is you have the farm case. There were a lot of charges that were even literally released to
a whole lot of things that would have maintained, would have not actually maintained him as president. But at the end of the day,
because they didn't have anybody else to vote for. Who are you going to take?
There was no candidate that's standing.
Me, Freedom Butler would have tried us.
Not really, but okay.
No, he could have tried us, but the problem is we would have to sit in parliament before getting in the door. Yeah, okay. But anyway, that's typically that. He would have possibly transported us as the Minister of Transport. Do we also believe that we have the right ministers in the right place,
or is just the shift of minister to another department, just playing game of chess?
Exactly. It's a very awkward situation whereby we are left in the dark, literally, unfortunately, right, about it. And with some of those, there are consequences that fall through. We have economy being affected a lot. What do we imply by then the economy being affected so much? We are obviously implying on many factors. We are implying on the fact that electricity goes out, then somebody else out there says, okay, there's no electricity. Okay, so I have to buy a generator now. I have to buy fuel now. Fuel is up. Okay. Transport now. Okay, so that means that prices have to go. Inflation has to rise. A lot of stuff has to happen. We are already living in poverty. We are still literally figuring our lives out as society. We are still going through that. While our very same parliament and politicians are still living very nicely, right?
And even the, what is it? They increase the, what is it? The electricity something. What is it? The rate.
The rate. Oh yeah, it's going up.
It would up.
Okay.
I don't know if it's been the process of going up or it was a suggestion, but it is actually.
Why is it going up?
Loadshedding.
Wow. So basically we're not getting electricity, but we still need to pay for it more for not getting it. So that's basically getting into a restaurant and paying for the spoon, and then basically then after 2 minutes you now have to pay for the food arriving after the spoon.
It's probably there for the plate.
Okay. I was unaware of such. It means that we're gonna pay more rates. And this would not have been possible if obviously we are aware of how to replace our own government. But yet again, there's a lot of companies that can come out of that. Is it better to proclaim the devil that we know? At this point it is. I think independent elections, as they stated that they would be next year, we hope they go through. I really hope that somebody who's an independent elective comes through for us, because I think we need that more than we need the government right now, because they didn't even know how to nominate. For sure, they didn't know who to nominate. Because after my pause, he is the president.
Yeah.
The president of South Africa. Google it today. You know, so it's some of those factors that will have to come into play, and we would say I would say he's been absent at best. I didn't know that we had a president until 2020 March when we got a lockdown.
The COVID issue.
Yeah, I didn't know that we even had a president. Right, when he came through, when he started speaking, I don't know, it just went dark. Suddenly, yeah, and Eskom just now the CEO just resigned. In March he's leaving, right? And now with that, why would he leave? He stated his reasons, which we won't mention too much of. Obviously, we're trying to keep on time, but with most of these, the economic impact, right? The negative impact of the economy is so great to a point whereby we as a society are dying. Because the inflation, somebody's going to pay for all of this. Somebody's going to pay for electricity going down for 4 hours and rainbow chickens frosting from load shedding if they are not well generated. Somebody's going to pay for the slow network, even if you're trying to work online. Somebody's going to pay for not doing that job on time, for slow systems in the country, for slow internet, because this is the digital age. We're in the fourth industrial revolution, but you can't even keep up with it because we're even failing to literally do what is that need be. Somebody's going to pay for that. As a country that's already going deep in the rand, we are paying for it in a way that we cannot even afford it. I believe you mentioned something about a potential national shutdown.
Yeah. Well, that being a case where is it possible?
It's not affordable.
That's how affordable as we had a conversation earlier, but it is a necessary issue. It is a necessary. Someone once said that we are not angry enough.
We are not angry enough. We don't need to be angry enough. We just need to be smart enough. I believe we are not smart enough. This is where electricity comes in. Education.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs tips. So with
yeah.
we can't.
You have to be smart enough, not angry enough.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because being angry, I believe, is going to cost us more. Look at how what anger got us into in 2021, right? It got us into 154,900 employees losing their jobs in KZN, right? You look at those stats, 154,000. How now that means that 154,900 people are now poor,
Family.
unemployed. We are having a bad unemployment rate already. Now, each and every single one of those individuals potentially has family. So that means that it's possibly 3 members pay one of those 154,900 people who is now needing to be employed and have an income, who is now poorer because you were angry enough in 2021.
This time, let's be smart enough.
Yeah.
Let's get told.
It's basically that. Let's be smart enough. I heard there was one instance whereby they almost had a national shutdown at some point, but then we fought it, and and that was smart enough.
Yeah.
That was smart enough. That was something that we would 100% really be intrigued with, and with most of these, we would see a lot of things that we can really achieve, right? With being smart enough. Why it is the best country to really live in low crime rates, one of the most literate countries in the world, freedoms, right? This is Freedom of Switzerland. I usually confuse the name, right? But look at how well they are ran. You have very, very low crime rates. I think it's Sweden. You have very low crime rates. Everybody's living okay, right? You have places like Sweden, which they have very good public. You might argue that they have very good public hospitals. That's why people pay their taxes. They have beautiful hospitals because everyone there understands that part of life, right? They have good public schools that look like they're private. You don't even need to go to a private school in Sweden. How beautiful is that? It's because of such things. I think our own leaders are not really thinking enough about you. But at the same time, you are not educating yourself enough. Kill me for this one. But you are not educating yourself enough to a point whereby you can confront them. To say, look, you have so much value. Yet they're like, unemployed graduates. Why? Because already the leaders have failed us. But at the same time, again, the very same way in which we fought apartheid, we are now fighting our leaders as if we were fighting apartheid. So in actual fact, are we right to say our government is an equivalent of apartheid, but just that it's softer? Can we say that? Can you say the wealthy, the new apartheid is, if you're poor, you'll stay poor, we'll just keep taking money? Is that the new apartheid regime? Is that what we're facing without being really told that we're facing it? And the people that really fight for it are whom? People that literally, when you fight, you end up literally just losing your relevance and becoming poorer. Nobody actually even challenges the government. But what can we say? There are a lot of factors that I believe need to really be much going in terms of the conversation, more especially, right? With some of those really needing some more attention into it. Because we really need to start standing up. We really need to start talking about major issues. We really need to start really educating ourselves as to what we need to drive as an economy. Rwanda's out here doing amazing stuff. The youth in Rwanda's literally helping and advising the president. Imagine, while the youth here in South Africa is being angry enough
Instead of smart enough.
Exactly. Because it's fine, we can blame the leaders 100%. But if you're not smart enough, you cannot. It's a Greek philosophy. The pen is mightier than the sword. Basically, it's that thing. It's that very thing. We need to really be smart enough. That's where we get into everything that is 100%. But I believe that's going to be some of the very same topics that we're going to be touching. We wanted to really give you a briefness into it. I'm about to give you a fun fact. I think we might give you a fun fact every now and again when we talk about certain issues and certain topics, right? A fun fact is, if you are an environmentalist out there, which I believe South Africans are not, but the ozone layer is closing up, right? Apparently, from 1993, the chlorine formation dropped by 11%. So the depleting ozone layer, which was going to kill us, is now closing. So does that mean that we have a chance to really save our ice poles? The bromine dropped by 14.5% from 1999, right? So it's closing. Apparently, it will close by 2045. It should be close to a point where by the poles it won't be there. So South Pole more especially, it won't be necessarily there anymore. It will still kind of be there. And then by 2066, it was presumed to be closed completely. So are we, maybe humanity has been doing the right thing.
Well, for someone who doesn't know what that means, what would that mean if it closes?
What it means, if it closes up, sea levels are going to go back to normal in a way. We're really going to now not have less food anymore. Food stuff are really going to go much into good production again. Because then if the ozone layer is good, we don't have problems with erratic weathers, right? Natural disasters, I believe, will then break down because if the ice caps are not melting too much, yeah, so there won't be too many floods and things like that. We would really now be moving into a society which is good enough for us to live in. So it's a lot of benefits that will come through. So go study, read your books, come up with a great innovation to bring value to the country. Rwanda created the phone. Let's create something in South Africa. Let's put it in the market. Let's bring our value, because I don't believe that we have a value as a country to the world, apart from Rooibos tea in the Eastern Cape, right? And platinum, right? But again, at the same time, we have a lot of resources as Africa, but as South Africa, how well are we in terms of giving a role and really contributing to society, the global society? We have global citizen.
Yeah.
But what are we? Because I feel like we're just a resident
in our own country.
Yeah. Citizenship, I don't know, but the definition of a citizen might be different in dictionary, yes, but I would define it as a citizen as an active member of a residing kind of residence of a country, right? It's an active member of that. And if ever you're saying you're a global citizen, you're not active as South Africa. We don't even have an army. Actually, we don't even have anything to defend ourselves with. Anyway, we're not Ukraine. We're just saying we're not Ukraine. And with most issues, countries are thriving. Germany came out of a beautiful thing. Germany. But we're not going to talk about that.
That's good for another day.
This is a topic for another day. Just for now, just know that the ozone layer finally is closing. So potentially, if you're still alive by 2070, I hope I'll still be alive for that. God, I'll be old. But yeah, I'll be seeing bananas that I knew. Acid rate is going to drop a little bit, I hope. And might have electric cars, hydrogen-driven cars, but we will have something at the end of the day.
Hopefully illiterate South Africa as well.
Hopefully illiterate South Africa, which will take a long time.
But if we start now,
we're moving somewhere. I think if we start now, because the world is so beautiful right now that it's a global thing.
Yeah.
Right? It's a global thing. So if we start to really start now, we can really link up to other people without actually having to be like, I'm going to leave South Africa. You can start right now as we speak, you can start a solar park. You can have literally the electricity problem. You can just, as communities, just be like, we have our own solar plant. We'll pay for it. But you don't want to do that. It's fine. But anyway, just consider our words. Learn. Right? This is Varsity on Record. Catch us every single, I would say Wednesday. Let me just say Wednesday. I'm giving out a date. This is an intro thing. Should we say Wednesday?
This was an intro, and it's looking forward to other episodes, and hopefully you guys are more interested into what we coming forth with.
Yeah.
And it was a very insightful and very provocative thoughts coming from Mr. Holt here, but let's wait for the next episode. And hopefully we'll be greater than this one.
Yeah, 100%. I believe we'll be touching more, especially on the PUA, the Pre-University Academy from Pretoria. Again, shout out to Tawana, Professor Tawana Kupe for that as well, for that giving us the interview together with Professor Ntabiseng Okude as well. Shout out to that, to her as well. And then yeah, so we'll see you guys next time yet again. And remember, this is Varsity on Record. The light particularly is a wave. Let it resonate for generations. If you don't get it, don't forget about it. Steady.
It's easy.
Goodbye.